The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth as I lay at the bottom of our basement stairs. Above me, Jessica stood with her hands still outstretched, her face a mixture of rage and something else. Satisfaction, maybe? My parents' footsteps thundered down the stairs. What happened here? Mom's voice was sharp, but I noticed she was looking at Jessica, not me. She fell, Jessica said quickly, stepping back. She's so clumsy, you know how she is. I tried to speak to tell them that Jessica had pushed me after I caught her stealing money from my room again. But the pain in my chest made it hard to breathe. Every intake of air felt like knives stabbing my ribs. I didn't fall, I managed to gasp. She pushed. Emma, stop it. Dad cut me off. We don't need your dramatic accusations right now. I'm Emma Mitchell, and at 24, I was still living in my parents' house while finishing my medical residency. Jessica, my 26-year-old sister, had moved back home 6 months ago after her third failed attempt at college. Since then, the tension between us had escalated from snide remarks to something darker. Mom helped me sit up, and I couldn't hold back a cry of pain. I think we need to take her to the hospital, she said, worry creeping into her voice. No hospitals, Dad said firmly. We'll handle this at home, just like always. Just like always. Those words echoed in my head, reminding me of all the accidents it covered up over the years. The sprained wrist when Jessica threw a book at me during study time. The concussion from when she accidentally opened a door into my face. Each time, my parents found a way to handle it at home, to keep our family's image intact. But this time felt different. The pain was worse, and I could barely breathe. She needs a doctor, Mom insisted, her hand on my shoulder. Fine, Dad snapped. But Emma, you know what to say, right? You fell. You're clumsy. End of story. Jessica smirked behind them, knowing she'd get away with it again. She always did. The golden child could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Her violence was always explained away as accidents, misunderstandings, or my own fault. The emergency room was busy that night. As we waited, Dad kept rehearsing the story with me. You were carrying laundry down the stairs. You missed a step. Simple accident. Dr. Sarah Martinez wasn't like our usual family doctor who always accepted my parents' explanations without question. She looked at me directly, not at my hovering family members, as she asked what happened. I fell down the stairs, I said automatically, the practiced lie feeling bitter on my tongue. Dr. Martinez's eyes narrowed slightly. She glanced at my family, then back to me. I'd like to examine Emma privately, she said firmly. That's not necessary, Dad started, but Dr. Martinez cut him off. It's hospital policy for potential trauma cases. Please wait outside. Once they were gone, she helped me onto the examination table. Now, she said quietly, why don't you tell me what really happened? Something in her tone, the genuine concern in her eyes, made me want to tell her everything. But years of conditioning kicked in. I told you I fell. Emma, she said gently, I've been an ER doctor for 15 years. I know what fall injuries look like. These bruises on your arms, they're grip marks. Someone held you before you fell. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I stayed silent. Let's get some x-rays, she said, not pushing further. Then we can talk more. The x-rays revealed 3 broken ribs and a hairline fracture in my wrist. But that wasn't what made Dr. Martinez's face darken with concern. She pointed to older marks on the images, healing fractures I'd never known about. Emma, she said seriously, these x-rays tell a story. One that doesn't match with simple accidents or clumsiness. There's a pattern here, and as a mandated reporter, I have an obligation to report suspected abuse. My heart started racing. No, please, I begged. You don't understand. My family. Your family, she interrupted gently, has been covering up abuse. These injuries go back months, maybe years. You're a medical resident, Emma. You know what I'm seeing here. She was right. Looking at the x-rays with my professional training, I could see the truth I'd been denying. The old fractures, the pattern of injuries, it was all there in black and white. I need to make some calls, Dr. Martinez said, standing up. You're safe here, Emma. We have security, and your family can't take you home against medical advice. As she left the room, I heard my father's voice in the hallway, demanding to know what was taking so long. For the first time, instead of feeling fear at his anger, I felt something else. Hope. The x-rays had spoken the truth I never could, and now someone was finally listening. The next few hours passed in a blur. Hospital security was stationed outside my room while Dr. Martinez made her calls. I could hear my father's voice rising in the hallway, my mother's attempts to calm him, and Jessica's theatrical sobs about how I was making up stories to hurt her. But the x-rays couldn't lie. Dr. Martinez had called in a specialist, Dr. Thompson, who specialized in documenting abuse cases. Together, they walked me through each injury shown in the scans. These hairline fractures, Dr. Thompson pointed out, the defensive injuries, consistent with trying to protect yourself during a fall, or more likely, during an attack. My hands trembled as I looked at the evidence of years of abuse, documented in stark black and white. How had I convinced myself these were accidents? How had I let them convince me I was just clumsy? A police detective, Laura Bennett, arrived to take my statement. She had kind eyes but a no-nonsense attitude that made me feel safer somehow. "Take your time," she said, setting up a recording device. "Start from the beginning." So I did. I told her about growing up with Jessica, how the accident started small. A push here, a trip there. How our parents always sided with her, made excuses, told me to stop provoking her. How it escalated over the years until I lived in constant fear in my own home. "Why didn't you leave?" Detective Bennett asked gently. "My residency," I explained. "Living at home was the only way I could afford it. And then my family. I kept thinking if I just tried harder, if I was better somehow." "That's what they wanted you to think," she said firmly, "but you're not responsible for their actions." A soft knock interrupted us. Dr. Martinez entered with more scans. "Emma," she said, "we found something else. The CT scan shows evidence of a previous concussion that never received proper medical treatment. When did this happen?" "3 months ago," I whispered. "Jessica threw a textbook at my head when I refused to give her money. Mom said I just needed to sleep it off." Detective Bennett's pen moved quickly across her notepad. "We'll need to document all of this." Suddenly, there was commotion in the hallway. Jessica's voice rose above the others. "You can't keep me from my sister. This is ridiculous. Emma, tell them the truth." The security guard blocked the door as Jessica tried to push past him. Our eyes met through the doorway, and for the first time, I saw something in her expression I'd never seen before. Fear. She knew the game was over. The x-rays had exposed every lie, every accident, every covered-up attack. Our parents couldn't smooth this over with explanations about my clumsiness or accusations about my attention-seeking behavior. "Miss Mitchell," Detective Bennett called out to Jessica, "I suggest you step back or we'll add attempting to interfere with a police investigation to your charges." Jessica's face crumpled. "But it wasn't. I didn't mean." She looked desperately toward our parents, but they were occupied with their own problems. Dad was arguing with hospital administration, and Mom sat in a chair, crying quietly into her hands. Dr. Martinez sat beside my bed, her presence reassuring. "Emma, we'd like to keep you overnight for observation. We're also arranging for you to speak with a counselor." "What happens now?" I asked, looking between her and Detective Bennett. "Now," Detective Bennett said, "we build a case. The x-rays provide clear evidence of sustained abuse. Combined with your statement and the hospital documentation, we have enough to proceed with charges." "Charges?" My voice shook. "Against Jessica. And potentially your parents for failing to protect you and covering up abuse. They had a legal obligation to prevent harm and seek medical care for your injuries." It felt surreal. For years, I'd lived in fear, believing I had no choice, no voice, no proof. Now, thanks to one doctor who refused to look the other way, everything was changing. "You don't have to decide everything right now," Dr. Martinez assured me. "Focus on healing. We can help you find temporary housing once you're discharged, somewhere safe." "I have a friend," I said, thinking of Sarah, my best friend from medical school. "She's been trying to get me to move in with her for months." Detective Bennett nodded approvingly. "That's good. You'll need a support system." As they left my room, I could still hear my family in the hallway, but for the first time, their voices didn't fill me with dread. The x-rays had given me something I'd never had before. Proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy, clumsy, or making things up. Proof that couldn't be explained away or covered up. I took out my phone and texted Sarah, "Remember that spare room you offered? Is it still available?" Her response was immediate. "Always. For as long as you need." Want to tell me what's going on? Looking at the x-rays still displayed on the light board, I replied, it's a long story, but I'm finally getting out. 6 months later, I stood in Sarah's kitchen making coffee before my morning shift at the hospital. The newspaper on her counter caught my eye, specifically the small headline about Jessica's sentencing. She'd gotten 2 years probation, mandatory counseling, and a restraining order keeping her away from me. My parents had faced consequences too. Dad lost his position on the hospital board when the cover-ups came to light, and Mom's social standing in our small community crumbled as the truth spread. They'd both taken plea deals, probation and community service, plus mandatory counseling. You okay? Sarah asked, entering the kitchen. She'd been my rock through everything: the court proceedings, the therapy sessions, the nights when the memories kept me awake. Yeah, I said, surprising myself by actually meaning it. I am. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Martinez. She'd become a mentor of sorts, helping me navigate both my medical career and my healing journey. Ready for your presentation today. I was giving a talk to new medical residents about recognizing signs of abuse and the importance of speaking up. My own x-rays, with permission, would be part of the presentation. You know, Sarah said, watching me gather my materials, I'm really proud of you. Not just for getting out, but for using your experience to help others. She was right. In the months since that night in the ER, I found my voice in ways I never expected. I'd helped develop new protocols for the hospital's emergency department, making it easier for staff to identify and report suspected abuse cases. At the hospital, I ran into Jessica in the parking lot. Not by accident, I knew. She'd been waiting for me. Emma, she called out, staying beyond the restraining order's required distance. Please, can we talk? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. She seemed smaller somehow, less threatening. The counseling had apparently been working. I'd heard through family friends that she'd been diagnosed with several mental health issues and was finally getting treatment. I can't, I said firmly. You know that. The restraining order. I know, she interrupted. I got your letter. I'd written to her last month, part of my own therapy process. Not to forgive or forget, but to acknowledge our shared history and express hope that she was getting the help she needed. I'm sorry, she said, her voice cracking. I know it's not enough, but I am. The counseling, it's helping me understand what I did, why I did it, how much I hurt you. I'm glad you're getting help, I said, meaning it. But I need you to respect my boundaries now. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I understand. I just wanted you to know, you're really brave, Emma. Braver than I ever was. As she walked away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Her words didn't fix anything, but they acknowledged something important. I wasn't the weak one. I never had been. In the hospital conference room, I set up for my presentation. Dr. Martinez sat in the front row, giving me an encouraging nod. The room filled with residents, their faces eager and uncertain, reminding me of myself not so long ago. 6 months ago, I began pulling up the first x-ray. I was the patient, not the doctor. These images tell a story, not just of abuse, but of silence, of cover-ups, of the way family dynamics can normalize violence. I clicked through the images, explaining each injury, each missed opportunity for intervention. As medical professionals, we're often the first line of defense. Sometimes we're the only ones who can speak for those who've been silenced. After the presentation, a young resident approached me, her hands shaking slightly. Dr. Mitchell, she said quietly, your story, it helped me understand something about one of my patients. Trust your instincts, I told her. Do what I wish someone had done for me sooner. That evening, I returned to Sarah's house. My house now, really, feeling exhausted but fulfilled. A letter waited in the mailbox from my parents. They'd been writing regularly, trying to make amends. Sometimes I read their letters, sometimes I didn't. Today, I chose to open it. Dear Emma, Mom wrote, we watched your interview on the local news about the hospital's new abuse prevention protocols. We are so deeply sorry for failing you, for not protecting you when you needed us most. Your courage in speaking out has forced us to face our own failures. I folded the letter, saving the rest for later. Their guilt, their regret. It wasn't my burden to carry anymore. I was building a new life, one where my voice mattered, where my experiences could help others, where the truth didn't have to stay hidden. The x-rays that exposed my family's secrets now hung in my office, not as a reminder of trauma, but as a testament to survival. They spoke louder than any lie, broke through years of silence, and gave me back something I'd lost long ago, my power. Sarah had left dinner in the oven and a note on the counter. Remember, you're not just surviving anymore, you're thriving. Looking around at my new life, I smiled. She was right. The X-rays had spoken the truth, but I was writing my own story now.